The broken protocol captain, Sarah Chen, stood on the bridge of the UES New Horizon, watching the swirling colors of hyperspace fade into the brilliant star field of the Kepler system. After 18 months of travel, humanity's first official diplomatic mission to the Kepler Consortium was finally arriving. The 5 species that made up the consortium had extended an invitation to Earth after decades of cautious, long-range communication. Today would mark humanity's formal entry into galactic civilization. Captain, we're receiving multiple signals from the consortium fleet, reported Lieutenant Hayes from the communications station. They're using the standard diplomatic frequencies we agreed upon. Sarah nodded, feeling the weight of history on her shoulders. Behind her, the New Horizons bridge hummed with quiet efficiency. This wasn't just her ship anymore. It was the flagship of humanity's first interstellar diplomatic fleet. 12 vessels had made the journey, each carrying scientists, diplomats, artists, and cultural ambassadors. Admiral Marcus Webb commanded the fleet from his flagship, the massive battlecruiser Prometheus, while Sarah's New Horizon served as the primary diplomatic vessel. Put the signals through the translation matrix, Sarah ordered, and patch Admiral Webb into the channel. The view screen flickered to life, showing Admiral Webb's stern face from the Prometheus bridge. At 62, Webb was a veteran of the colony wars, where human settlements had been raided by unknown forces for 3 bloody years. Those attacks had ended when humanity developed faster-than-light travel and began patrolling their own space. But the scars remained visible in Webb's weathered features. "Admiral, we're about to make contact with the consortium welcome fleet," Sarah reported. Webb's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Remember, Captain, they invited us here, but we don't know their true intentions. Keep weapons powered, but not targeted. We're diplomats, but we're also ready to defend ourselves." Before Sarah could respond, the translation system began processing incoming signals. The computer's synthesized voice filled both bridges. "Human vessels, you have violated sacred space. Prepare for immediate correction. The dance of stars begins. Now, your destruction is imminent." The bridge fell silent. Sarah felt her blood turn cold as she stared at the tactical display. 17 alien vessels were moving toward them in complex formation patterns, their energy signatures spiking. "Captain, their weapons are powering up," Lieutenant Hayes reported, his voice tight with tension. On the comm channel, Admiral Webb's face had gone deadly serious. "All ships, battle stations. They've lured us here for an ambush. Defensive formation. Alpha 7, do not fire until they do." Sarah watched in growing horror as the alien vessels continued their approach. The translation system kept feeding them threatening messages. "Prepare for cleansing fire. The weak shall be consumed. Your journey ends here." Dr. Elena Buskis, the fleet's chief xenolinguist, rushed onto the New Horizons bridge, her face pale with confusion. "Captain, something's wrong with these translations. The syntax patterns don't match any aggressive communication we've studied from the consortium species." But it was too late. On the tactical display, Sarah watched as one of the alien vessels launched what appeared to be a missile directly at the Prometheus. Admiral Webb's voice crackled over the comm. "All ships, they've fired first. Return fire. Protect the diplomatic vessels." What followed was not a battle, but a massacre. The human fleet, designed for exploration but armed with the latest military technology, unleashed devastating firepower on the approaching alien vessels. Plasma cannons tore through holes that seemed to offer no resistance. Kinetic projectiles shattered ships that weren't even equipped with military-grade shields. Within minutes, 16 of the 17 alien vessels were destroyed or crippled. The last ship, badly damaged, managed to transmit one final message before its power systems failed. This time, Dr. Vasquez was ready with her portable translation unit. Bypassing the ship's malfunctioning primary system, the alien voice that came through was not threatening but confused and terrified. "Why do you attack us? We came to welcome you with the dance of stars, our children, our artists. ... Why?" Sarah felt the universe tilt around her. "Dr. Vasquez, what was that ship that launched at the Prometheus?" Elena's hands shook as she worked her console. "Captain, it wasn't a missile. According to my readings, it was some kind of ceremonial beacon. The energy signature matches celebration, fireworks, not weapons." The terrible truth crashed over the bridge like a wave. Sarah activated the fleet-wide channel. "Admiral Webb, I think we've made a terrible mistake. The aliens weren't attacking us." Webb's response was immediate and cold. "Captain, they transmitted clear threats and launched projectiles at our ships. The evidence is undeniable. Sir, our translation system malfunctioned. What we interpreted as threats were actually ceremonial greetings. The dance of stars isn't a battle formation, it's a welcome celebration." The silence that followed seemed to stretch for eternity. Finally, Webb's voice returned, harder than before. "Captain Chen, 17 alien vessels approached our fleet in tactical formation with powered weapons. Our translators, functioning as designed, detected hostile intent. We responded appropriately to protect human lives." Sarah stared at the debris field on her screen, knowing that somewhere in that twisted metal were the bodies of alien diplomats, artists, and probably children who had come to welcome humanity to the stars. "Admiral, we need to send aid to any survivors. We need to contact the consortium and explain what happened." "Negative, Captain. We will not show weakness by apologizing for defending ourselves. The consortium chose to approach us in a threatening manner, and they've learned the cost of that decision. We maintain our position and wait for their next move." Dr. Vasquez stepped forward, her voice trembling with urgency. "Admiral, with respect, this was our error. The consortium species have never shown any aggressive tendencies in decades of communication. They're peaceful traders and explorers." Webb's image on the screen never wavered. "Doctor, peaceful species don't approach armed fleets with powered weapons. Perhaps their reputation for peace was carefully cultivated deception. Today, we've seen their true nature." Over the following hours, Sarah watched helplessly as Admiral Webb spun the disaster into a strategic victory. He broadcast reports back to Earth describing a successful defense against an alien ambush, claiming that humanity had proven its strength and earned respect through force. The surviving alien vessel was not rescued but rather captured and stripped of its technology. Meanwhile, Dr. Vasquez worked frantically to decode the real communications from the consortium fleet's final moments. What she found made Sarah sick to her stomach. The alien vessels had been filled with cultural ambassadors. From all 5 consortium species, they had brought art, music, and scientific gifts to share with humanity. The weapons that had powered up were actually advanced holographic projectors designed to create a spectacular light show to welcome the human fleet. The Dance of Stars, Sarah learned, was the consortium's most sacred ceremony of friendship. It involved ships moving in ancient patterns, while projecting beautiful light displays that told the story of their species' first meeting centuries ago. Every movement that the human fleet had interpreted as aggressive was actually part of an elaborate artistic performance. The ceremonial beacon that had triggered Admiral Webb's attack order was meant to synchronize the light show across all 17 ships. Instead, it had become the spark that ignited the destruction of innocent lives. Sarah tried repeatedly to convince Admiral Webb to send aid to the consortium worlds, to explain the misunderstanding, to make amends for the tragedy. Each time, he refused, claiming that showing regret would be seen as weakness and invite further attacks. "Captain, you're thinking like a diplomat instead of a military commander," Webb told her during their final conversation of the day. "The galaxy is not a peaceful place. Those colony war raiders proved that. Today we showed every species in this sector that humanity is not to be underestimated. That message may save more human lives than you realize." But Sarah could see the doubt in Webb's eyes, buried beneath layers of military pride and defensive anger. He knew the truth as well as she did. The question was whether he would ever admit it, even to himself, as the human fleet took defensive positions around the debris field. Sarah stood alone on her bridge, watching the stars that no longer seemed welcoming somewhere out there. 5 peaceful species were learning that their gesture of friendship had been met with devastating violence. Somewhere out there, families were mourning loved ones who had died not in battle, but in a celebration of peace. The worst part was knowing it had all started with a single malfunction, a glitch in humanity's translation system that had turned words of welcome into declarations of war. One error, compounded by fear and pride, had potentially doomed humanity's place in the galaxy before it had even begun. The galactic reckoning, the news traveled faster than the human fleet could retreat. Within 72 hours of what historians would later call the Kepler massacre, every major civilization in the galaxy had received detailed accounts of humanity's unprovoked attack on the consortium welcome fleet. The surviving alien vessel had managed to transmit everything: the ceremonial preparations, the cultural gifts, the children's choir that had been practicing songs of friendship for months. "Captain." Sarah Chen watched the incoming transmissions with growing dread. The Andorian Trade Federation had severed all economic ties with human colonies. The Crystalline Collective had issued formal warnings to their member species about the violent newcomers. Most devastating of all, the Peaceful Keeper Alliance, which had been considering offering humanity membership, had declared human space a zone of caution. "Captain, we're receiving another transmission from Earth Command," Lieutenant Hayes reported, his voice strained from 3 days of increasingly urgent communications. Admiral Webb's face appeared on the main screen, broadcasting from the Prometheus. Behind him, Sarah could see tactical displays showing human colonies throughout the outer rim, colonies that were now isolated and vulnerable as their alien partners withdrew support. "All fleet commanders, Earth has reviewed our reports of the Kepler engagement," Webb announced. "Command agrees that we responded appropriately to an alien ambush. However, the enemy has launched a propaganda campaign to portray us as aggressors. We will not be swayed by their lies." Sarah activated her private channel to the Admiral. "Sir, our colonies are being abandoned. The Tau Ceti agricultural station has lost its consortium trading partners. New Geneva's research facility has been cut off from the Keeper scientific exchange program. Our people are suffering because of what happened here." Webb's expression hardened. "Captain, showing weakness now would be catastrophic. If we admit fault, every alien species will see us as easy targets. The colony war raiders attacked us because they thought we were defenseless. We cannot repeat that mistake. But Sarah knew. The truth was different. Dr. Vasquez had spent days analyzing the consortium's historical records, which had been freely shared with humanity for decades. There was no evidence of deception, no hidden military buildup, no secret aggressive intentions. The consortium species had genuinely been peaceful traders and explorers, just as they had claimed. The real tragedy became clear when the first refugee ships arrived. 11 human colonies had been established in consortium space over the past 30 years, founded through careful diplomatic negotiations and mutual cooperation agreements. Now those colonists were fleeing as their alien neighbors, traumatized by the unprovoked attack on their diplomatic fleet, could no longer guarantee their safety. Sarah met with the refugee leaders in the New Horizons main conference room. Maria Santos, the former governor of the Kepler 438b agricultural colony, was barely holding back tears as she described the evacuation. "Captain, these people had been our friends for decades," Maria explained. "The Zephyrian farmers taught us how to cultivate their crops in Loxagen environments. Our children grew up playing with their children. But when news of the attack reached them, everything changed. They weren't angry, they were terrified. They looked at us like we might turn violent at any moment." Dr. Vasquez, who had been studying the social dynamics of the evacuation, added her analysis. "Captain, the consortium species genuinely cannot understand why we attacked. In their culture, the dance of stars is the most sacred expression of friendship. To them, it's as if we responded to a marriage proposal with murder." The situation deteriorated rapidly. Admiral Webb, rather than acknowledging the mistake, doubled down on his aggressive stance. He declared that any alien vessel approaching human space would be considered potentially hostile and would be required to submit to inspection and escort. When several species refused these humiliating conditions, Webb launched what he called Operation Clean Slate. Sarah watched in horror as human battle groups began conducting preemptive defensive strikes against any alien presence near human territory. A crystalline research station studying asteroid mining was destroyed because its sensor arrays were deemed capable of surveillance. An Andorian medical ship carrying supplies to a plague-stricken world was forced to jettison its cargo and submit to invasive searches. Each incident created new enemies and eliminated potential allies. The galaxy, which had once seemed full of opportunities for cooperation and friendship, was rapidly becoming a hostile environment where humanity stood alone. The breaking point came when Admiral Webb ordered an attack on a Keeper archaeological site near the edge of human space. The Keepers had been documenting ancient ruins for purely scientific purposes, but Webb declared their presence a potential security threat. The resulting battle destroyed not only the research expedition, but also priceless artifacts that had survived for millions of years. The Keeper Alliance's response was swift and decisive. They issued a formal declaration that humanity was to be considered a rogue species and would be subject to galactic sanctions. Trade routes were closed. Scientific exchanges were terminated. Human vessels were banned from entering the territory. Of dozens of allied species, Sarah realized that Admiral Webb's fear of showing weakness had created the very situation he claimed to be preventing. By refusing to admit the original error and apologize for the Kepler massacre, humanity had transformed potential friends into enemies and isolated itself in a hostile galaxy. The internal rebellion began quietly. Captain Martinez of the exploration Vessel Magellan started by simply refusing to fire on alien vessels without clear evidence of hostile intent. Commander Thompson of the research ship Darwin began secretly transmitting humanitarian aid to worlds damaged by human attacks. Dr. Vasquez used her expertise to establish unauthorized communication channels with surviving consortium members, trying to explain that not all humans supported Admiral Webb's policies. Sarah found herself at the center of a growing movement within the human fleet. Officers and crew members who recognized the moral catastrophe they had become part of and wanted to find a different path forward. They called themselves the Redemption Coalition, and their goal was simple: acknowledge the truth, make amends for the damage, and try to rebuild humanity's relationship with the galaxy. The confrontation came when Admiral Webb discovered the unauthorized communications. He ordered the arrest of 12 officers, including Captain Martinez and Dr. Vasquez, charging them with treason and collaboration with enemy forces. Sarah made her choice. She activated the fleet-wide communication system and broadcast a message to every human vessel. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the UES New Horizon. I am formally declaring that Admiral Webb's actions do not represent the values of humanity or the desires of Earth's people. The attack on the consortium Welcome Fleet was based on a translation error, not alien aggression. We have spent months creating enemies where we could have had friends, spreading fear where we could have brought hope. Her words sparked a fleet-wide mutiny. More than half of the human vessels declared their support for the Redemption Coalition and refused to follow Webb's orders. But the damage was already done. The galaxy had seen enough of humanity's capacity for violence and destruction. The final blow came when Earth's command, faced with the complete isolation of human space and the collapse of interstellar trade, ordered the entire fleet to return home. The dream of joining galactic civilization was over before it had truly begun. As the human fleet began its long journey back to Earth, Sarah stood on the bridge of the New Horizon, looking out at the stars that now seemed cold and distant. She thought about the consortium children who had been practicing friendship songs, the keeper archaeologists who had been protecting ancient knowledge, the countless beings who had offered humanity partnership and received violence in return. Dr. Vasquez, released from custody by the mutinous crew, joined her at the observation deck. "Captain, do you think we'll ever get another chance? Will the galaxy ever trust us again?" Sarah was quiet for a long moment, watching the stars wheel slowly past. "Alina, trust is like a priceless artifact. Once you shatter it, you can never fully repair it. We might spend generations trying to prove we're not the monsters they now believe us to be." Behind them, Admiral Webb sat alone in the ship's detention facility, finally understanding the magnitude of what his pride and fear had cost humanity. One translation error, one moment of panic, one refusal to admit a mistake, and the entire future of human civilization had been derailed. The galaxy was vast and full of wonders, but humanity would face it alone, haunted by the knowledge that their greatest enemy had not been alien aggression or cosmic forces beyond their control. Their greatest enemy had been themselves, their fear, their pride, and their inability to say the simple words that might have changed everything. We were wrong and were sorry. The stars that had once promised infinite possibilities now served as witnesses to humanity's fall from grace, a reminder that in the vast cosmos, the most destructive force of all might be the darkness that dwells within the human heart.